Hello everyone! Today we are taking a deep dive into one of the most popular hybrid crossovers in the US, the Toyota RAV4. This is the first of a three-part series where we'll break down and compare the Toyota RAV4, Honda CR-V and Hyundai Tucson. Even though all three have hybrid badges on the back, they actually work in a very different ways. And that's something a lot of buyers in the US don't always realize. For example, the RAV4 uses Toyota's e-CVT with a planetary gear system, while the CR-V takes a different approach, where the gasoline engine often acts more like a generator rather than directly driving the wheels. Meanwhile, the Tucson sticks to a more traditional setup, a 6-speed automatic transmission with a torque converter, just like in conventional cars, but with an electric motor integrated right into the gearbox. We'll break all of this down in detail later in the video, so you can clearly understand which system fits your driving style best, whether you're commuting in LA traffic or cruising on the highway. A lot of you might be wondering, why even bring a Korean Tucson into the same conversation as traditionally reliable Japanese crossovers? Here is the thing, Hyundai has been playing a very aggressive marketing game in the US market for years now, especially in places like California, where buyers really pay attention to value, tech and warranty. So how are they pulling customers away from brands like Toyota and Honda? Simple. They hit both emotion and price. Hyundai gives you features that Japanese brands often charge a premium for, or sometimes don't offer at all. You get bold, futuristic design, massive screens, and a ton of modern tech, even in base trims. And in the US, they've really pushed it over the top with one of the best warranties in the industry. But here's the real question. Does all that flashy design and tech actually hold up when it comes to long-term reliability? The kind of durability people expect from the RAV4 and CR-V, especially when we are talking about higher mileage, 100,000 miles and beyond, and resale value on the used market. That's exactly what we are going to dig into in the next videos. Before we move on to the Honda, an important clarification. In this series, we are focusing only on full hybrids, HEVs, or hybrid electric vehicles. These are cars that don't need to be plugged in, unlike plug-in hybrids, PHEVs. And they are definitely not mild hybrids, which use a small starter generator and offer minimal real-world fuel savings. We are talking about true self-charging hybrid systems, cars that manage their energy on their own and can actually make a noticeable difference at the gas station, especially in everyday driving like stop-and-go city traffic. Let's start with the recognized king of the segment, the Toyota RAV4. We are talking about the 5th generation, the XA50, which debuted at the end of 2018 and has since become one of the most sought-after crossovers in the US market. So what do you need to know about this car? From a technical standpoint, it's often seen as a benchmark for reliability. Under the hood you get 2.5-liter naturally aspirated engine from Toyota's Dynamic Force family, running on the Atkinson cycle. It works together with electric motors through Toyota's well-known e-CVT, a planetary gear system that's both simple and extremely durable. Unlike traditional transmission, there are no fixed gears constantly shifting, and no belts or chains like you'd find in a conventional CVT, which basically means far fewer things that can wear out or fail over time. If you go with the all-wheel drive version, Toyota calls it E4, instead of a traditional driveshaft, you get a separate electric motor on the rear axle. So the rear wheels are powered purely by electricity, no mechanical connection running the length of the car. Now, let's break down what's actually happening inside the system. Up front, the RAV4 Hybrid uses two electric motor generators, MG1 and MG2. MG1 is kind of the hidden brain of the whole setup. It acts as a starter, firing up the gasoline engine almost instantly and seamlessly. It also works as a generator, charging the hybrid battery. But its most important role is this. By changing its speed, MG1 effectively controls the gear ratio inside the planetary gear set. In other words, it digitally simulates how the transmission works without having a traditional gearbox. MG2 on the other hand is the main muscle. This is the motor that actually drives the car. It's responsible for that smooth, silent launch from a stop on electric power, and it delivers that instant torque you feel during acceleration. It also assists the gasoline engine when you push the car harder. And one of its most important jobs, regenerative braking. The moment you lift off the accelerator or lightly press the brake, MG2 switches roles and starts converting converting the car's kinetic energy back into electricity, sending it straight into the battery. That's how the system constantly recycles energy and helps you save fuel. This entire system, the 2.5-liter engine and 2 electric motors, is tightly interconnected through a single planetary gear set. The computer is constantly managing the process, making hundreds of decisions per second and smoothly redistributing power where it's needed. At this point, a lot of drivers ask a very logical question. If everything is mechanically linked with the solid metal gears, and there are no clutches or traditional gear changes, how is the system actually controlled? The key idea is this. The computer doesn't control the mechanics, it controls the electricity, and the central player here is the inverter. In simple terms, electricity replaces the role of conventional transmission. Instead of shifting gears, the system adjusts the flow of electric current by changing voltage and speed in the electric motors, especially MG1. The car can instantly alter how power is delivered, so there is no need for physical gear changes. Everything happens electronically, seamlessly, and almost instantly. Now, if you have the all-wheel drive version, there is also a third electric motor on the rear axle, often referred to as MGR. And just like we mentioned earlier, there is no driveshaft connecting the front and the rear. Instead, the car's control system constantly monitors traction. The moment it detects slip at the front wheels, it can send power to the rear motor in milliseconds. This makes a noticeable difference in real-world conditions, whether you are driving on wet roads, snow, or starting on a steep incline. e-CVT transmission on the Hybrid RAV4. A lot of people hear e-CVT and immediately think, oh, it's a CVT. Belts, chains, pulleys, something that's going to wear out or fail. Forget that completely. The term e-CVT, electronically controlled continuously variable transmission, is mostly a marketing label, something simple to explain in the dealership. In reality, there is no traditional variator here. No belts, no chains, no pulleys that can stretch or snap. What you actually have is a compact aluminum housing that contains a planetary gear set and 2 electric motors, MG1 and MG2, all working together as a single unit. The electric motors are not just paired with the transmission, they essentially are the transmission. That's why the system is so smooth, efficient, and most importantly, reliable. So what about real-world reliability of Toyota's e-CVT? Think about the cars you most often see working as taxis, both in the US and across Europe. Exactly. Prius and hybrid Corolla models built on this exact same system. These cars run almost non-stop, 24/7. Some of them barely get turned off, constantly dealing with stop-and-go traffic, endless acceleration and braking. And yet, it's not unusual to see them wreck 300, 400, or even 500,000 miles. And they just keep going. So here's the simple conclusion. If taxi fleets around the world haven't managed to kill this system under extreme use, it's very unlikely to become a problem in normal ownership. In everyday driving, commuting, errands, weekend trips, you are far more likely to wear out the seats and interior before you even run into serious issues with the e-CVT. With basic maintenance, this setup can easily go well beyond 300,000 miles, and in many cases even 400,000. RAV4 Hybrid engine, 2.5 dynamic force. Under the hood you get a 2.5-liter naturally aspirated engine from Toyota's dynamic force family. And honestly, this engine is purpose-built for hybrid efficiency. First, it runs on the Atkinson cycle. Without diving too deep into theory, the idea is simple. The intake valves stay open a bit longer than usual. This reduces power at low RPM, but significantly improves fuel efficiency. Also, electric motors instantly compensate for that slight dip in low-end torque. Second, Toyota uses its D4S dual injection system. Each cylinder has 2 injectors. One sprays fuel directly into the cylinder, the other sprays into the intake manifold. This combination solves a major issue found in many modern engines: carbon buildup on intake valves. So unlike a lot of turbocharged European or even some Korean engines, you are far less likely to deal with expensive valve cleaning down the road. On top of that, there is no turbocharger, which removes another potential point of failure, and the engine uses a durable timing chain instead of a belt. So, other weak points? Nothing major or systematic. But there is one important rule every owner should follow. This engine is designed with very tight tolerances and thin oil channels, and it's built to run on low viscosity oil, typically 0W16. Using the correct oil and changing it on time is critical. Ignore that and you can create problems where none really existed. Fuel consumption. The hybrid logic flip. For those who have spent their lives driving traditional gas or diesel cars, there is a total shift in logic here. In a standard car, your fuel economy is worst in city traffic and best on the highway. With the RAV4 Hybrid, it's the exact opposite. In the city where you're constantly braking and crawling through gridlock, the regenerative braking system is at its peak performance. You are essentially harvesting free energy from every stop, charging the battery and cruising on pure electricity a large portion of the time. Because of this, you will see incredible real-world figures of 35 to 40 mpg in city driving. For a crossover of this size with all-wheel drive, that is phenomenal. However, as soon as you hit the freeway and maintain speeds around 75–80 miles per hour, the hybrid magic starts to fade. The RAV4's wracked, boxy design comes with a literal price: aerodynamic drag. At these speeds, the electric motors aren't doing the heavy lifting anymore. The 2.5-liter gas engine has to run constantly to push all that they are out of their way. On the highway, your fuel economy will typically drop to around 30 to 35 mpg. It's also on the highway where the RAV4's biggest drawback becomes apparent: cabin noise and the drone of the powertrain. When you merge onto the freeway or floor it to pass a semi-truck, the computer instantly pings the engine to its most efficient high RPM range. Instead of familiar rising and falling sound of gear shifts, you get a loud, monotonic howl until you ease off the pedal. Combine that with Toyota's relatively thin sound insulation, and it can get pretty loud in the cabin. If you spend 80% of your time on high-speed California freeways, this acoustic trade-off might get under your skin. The interior reflects this workhorse vibe too. It's utilitarian and high quality, but don't expect luxury. The first and most important issue is the so-called Cablegate. This affects only all-wheel drive versions. Remember the rear electric motor I mentioned? A thick high-voltage cable runs straight underneath the car. The problem lies in the connector near the rear gear unit, which has an unfortunate bathtub design. Water, dirt, and most dangerously raw salt tend to collect there. Over time, the salt can corrode the connector and its contacts. If ignored, the cable deteriorates. The hybrid system throws an error, and the car either switches to front-wheel drive or refuses to move at all. Official replacement of this unit can cost several $1,000s, depending on your market. Toyota acknowledged the issue, extended the warranty on affected units, and updated the design in later models. But if you are shopping on the used market, this is the #1 spot to check carefully with a flashlight. Other known issues of the hybrid RAV4. High voltage battery overheating due to neglect. Battery itself is very reliable, but it relies on proper cooling. The ventilation grill with a filter is located inside the cabin, under the rear seat. If a previous owner had a dog, throw with the windows open frequently or never clean this mesh filter, it can get clogged with dust, hair and debris. When that happens, the battery can't breathe properly, overheats regularly, and its lifespan drops much faster than expected. EGR system and heat exchanger buildup. Because the hybrid frequently switches the gasoline engine on and off, especially during short city trips, the engine often runs cooler than usual. Over time, this can cause soot and carbon buildup in the EGR valve and its tubes. On cars approaching 200,000 miles, if the system has never been cleaned, you may see dashboard errors and increased fuel consumption. Both of these issues are preventable with regular maintenance and attention, so they are worth checking when buying a used RAV4. And the fourth, small but very annoying problem: a weak little 12-volt battery. On the RAV4 Hybrid, it's located in the trunk, and it's responsible for waking up the car's computers and starting the hybrid system. If the car sits unused for a couple of weeks, say you went on vacation, this little battery can easily drain completely. When that happens, you won't be able to open the doors normally or start the car, even if the main hybrid battery is fully charged. The only solution is to jump-start it, just like you would start an old-school car. It's a minor flaw, but one that can be frustrating if you are not prepared. The fifth problem is the roof leak. As strange as it may sound for a $40,000 crossover, Early 5th generation RAV4s had issues with the roof rail clips. Over time, the seals would dry out, allowing water to seep into the cabin during the rain or car washes. The water could run down the pillars, reaching electrical wiring and the headliner. If you're inspecting a used RAV4 and notice stains on the ceiling, don't assume it's just someone forgetting to close a window. This is a known design flaw. The good news is that Toyota later addressed it with the repair kits for affected vehicles. And the last thing, security. But now we are not talking about your safety, but about the safety of your vehicle. In 2025, the RAV4 topped the list of the most stolen cars in the Netherlands, Canada, and entered the top 5 in the UK. Unfortunately, the RAV4's popularity has a downside. It is one of the most stolen cars. The factory security system for car thieves is like opening a tin can. Therefore, when buying such a car, immediately budget for the installation of a serious anti-theft system. Why is it so vulnerable? The problem is not in a poor assembly quality, but in the architecture of the electronic system. Thieves don't need to break glass. They peel the fender liner or the front bumper to get to the front headlight connector. Through this connector, they connect to the car's data bus using a special device. This device sends a signal that the key is found, and the factory security system pursues this as a command from the owner. As a result, the car is opened and started in 60 seconds without any noise. So if you value your vehicle, investing in proper anti-theft protection is essential. So what's the verdict on the Toyota RAV4? On one side, you have benchmark technical reliability. The e-CVT planetary gear set and the 2.5 dynamic force engine are some of the best engineering solutions available for hybrids today. This is a car built for long-term ownership. On the other side, there are a few trade-offs. North insulation isn't perfect, and the engine can produce a noticeable noise at high speeds. The interior is functional and practical, but it feels simpler compared to modern Korean or Chinese competitors that pack in more screens and flashy graphics. And of course, like many popular cars, that is a concern. So a solid anti-theft system isn't a luxury, it's a necessity. But here is the question. Can its competitors offer more for the same money? Will the Honda CR-V feel more comfortable? Will the Hyundai Tucson impress with technology and driving dynamics? We'll dive into all of that in the next video, so make sure to subscribe and catch the second part of this hybrid showdown. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.